All right, let's start things off this week with a man who has very much been in the news over the past week or so. He is the newest addition to the UFC lightweight division. He is the former multi-time Bellator lightweight champion, and now he is at least for now, the backup fighter for the lightweight title fight at UFC 254 next month in Abu Dhabi. Of course, he is the one and only Michael Chandler, who is kind enough to give us some time here on this Wednesday. And I'm so happy that he is doing so because he has been making the media rounds. I mean, you have talked to everyone under the sun, Michael, and now you have carved out a few minutes for your old pal, Ariel. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome, man. You're very, very welcome. I had to barely carve out some time for you.
This is like when you're, juicing, like when you're doing like an orange juice and there's only like a little bit left. I'm trying to squeeze at the last. I mean, you've talked to everyone, like a kid starting his own blog.
First of all, that's not true.
I'm the shriveled up orange here with a little bit of juice left.
Orange peel. You're like, maybe I can get a little bit of extra vitamin C out of this just shriveled up orange peel. I think it's been sitting in the refrigerator for a couple of days. No, that's not true. Numerous articles have come out as if I was speaking to a bunch of media outlets, but I think they were just taking stuff from Instagram lives and stuff I was doing. You know, you're my favorite. Just don't tell anyone else. Nobody else will see this, right? Okay.
No one's going to see this. Okay, absolutely
good.
Not. Well, first things first, congratulations. This is a really big deal. I know it's something that's been on your mind for quite some time. I want to start here. August 7th, you beat Benson Henderson, Mohegan's son.
Yeah.
When you left the cage that night, did you know it would be your last time walking out of a Bellator cage?
I think I did, and it's so interesting hearing everybody's perspective. Everybody thought it was just a ploy for me to try to get more money from Bellator, or a ploy to try to drive the price up. But I had a phenomenal run in Bellator. Bellator is very much who they are, the organization that they are, because of the fights that I put on, and I am who I am because of the promotion and the opportunities that they afforded me. It was very much a great symbiotic relationship for a decade. I believe I tried my best to be the best employee I possibly could for them. And you heard it in my post-fight speech. I even got a little bit choked up, man. A guy who is near and dear to my heart, Mike Sarnosky, was holding the microphone for that last post-fight speech. And I really, truly meant it, that every single heartbeat in that entire organization, from the front of the house to the back of the house, to the people that are checking us in, to the medicals, to all the people I've been on the phone with for the last 10 years, these people have touched my life and impacted my life in ways that the fans and the media will never know. But I think I had made up my mind that I was probably going to make a change, and it was going to take either a really crazy offer or, just a big time change of heart. At that moment when I walked outside that cage, it was the hardest moment of my life, because it was the craziest moments of my life, leading up to one of the biggest pressure filled situations. But I think I knew.
Why did you feel like you had to make a change? Why now, as opposed to in the past? And even if they gave you a good deal, it seemed like they always treated you well. You were for a long time the face of Bellator, dare I say. Why did you feel like you had to make a change now?
It was, sometimes in life, I think doors start to open and things start to manifest themselves, whether it be outside circumstances or internal feelings, internal desires. And I think I could just see things changing, see things maturing. And it wasn't a maturation process as in I outgrew Bellator, but it was just, things weren't looking the same to my eyes, to my mind's eye, in my heart, in my spirit. And truthfully, when I've been in this sport now for 11 years, I always told, 10 years ago when people asked me how long are you going to fight, I say I'll probably retire by the time I'm 35. At this point, I can't see myself retiring anytime earlier than 37, 38, 39 years old. I feel better at 34 than I did at 24. So when you're firing on all cylinders, when you're feeling the best you've ever felt, and you go out and you dispatch a guy like Benson Henderson and knock him out, I knew especially if I had a dominant performance, I was going to be put in pole position to be able to make whatever decision I wanted to. And when you have options in life, my manager, Dave Martin, always says this: options in life are a good thing, especially in this sport. And we knew we were going to have options, and we went through the free agency process, and here we are, man, hopefully October 24th.
So we've seen people roll the dice and fight out their contract, but then they lose that last one, right? You rolled the dice, fought it out, and won in impressive fashion. How nervous were you before that fight, in the locker room on Friday, on Thursday, that week in Connecticut? How nervous were you, considering the stakes? This was arguably one of the biggest fights of your life, considering what could happen if you win in impressive fashion.
for sure, the biggest fight of my life. And I'm extremely blessed with a phenomenal competitor's mindset. Whenever that fight day comes and I get that hard workout in the morning, and then it's time to go, throughout the rest of my day, go get wrapped up, go to the locker room. I'm locked in. I'm ready to go compete. I'm a lion ready to get inside that cage and go. But the 12 weeks leading up to that fight was some of the hardest emotional roller coaster I've ever been in my entire life. So to paint a picture really quickly, numerous teammates testing positive for COVID-19, coaches testing positive for COVID-19. You've spoken to dozens and dozens of fighters who everyone was testing positive for COVID-19. I'm in Florida. It's a crazy hotspot for COVID-19. It's the last fight on my contract. Not only do I need to win this fight, but I need to look good. I'm fighting a guy in Benson Henderson who has a knack, who is very, very good at making guys not look good. He has a knack for making world-class fighters not look that good. Even if you beat him, it's hard to dominate Benson Henderson. So a ton of pressure in that regard, a ton of pressure from essentially, saying no to Bellator's offer. When you say no to an offer, you're essentially saying, hey, I'm betting on myself and I can go get something better elsewhere, or go watch me and see what I do inside that cage August 7th, and then we'll come back and talk. So it took a lot of, cojones to do that. And so it was just a ton of pressure. And I think I'd be lying if I didn't say it affected me. But luckily on fight day, in that moment, I think it all manifested itself in my post-fight celebration when I just screamed, yes, 5 times in an empty arena. So it sounded extra, extra loud, and I sounded extra, extra psycho. But I think that was the moment where all the weight was lifted. The 6,000-pound gorilla was off my chest. And at that moment, nothing bad could go wrong anymore for me. A, not to get a paycheck. B, not to look impressive going into free agency. And it all worked out well, thank God.
Going into that fight, when was the last time they offered you a deal?
We had spoken months before, and that's what my manager had said. Dave Martin had said, hey, listen, we'll negotiate up until that cage door closes and that bell rings. But as soon as that bell rings, you can't unring that bell. And Michael's going to go out there. He's going to do what he does, and he's going to become a free agent. He's going to make the best decision for himself, his wife, and his son. And it was a couple months before, and we never got a deal done, obviously.
Were you at all insulted that you didn't get a deal done?
No, because, if you look at adverse experiences or adverse circumstances in life, but something good comes out of them, were they really adverse circumstances, or were they just predestined doors to be closed that would eventually help you make the best decision possible with the information that you had? Now imagine Bellator offers me a phenomenal deal and I'm just chomping at the bit to sign it and I'm excited about it. I don't sit here and talk to you about now signing with the UFC and me truly believing that I'm going to be the UFC lightweight champion in the next 12 months. Sometimes, and I think that's what's happened. And that was my conversation that I had with Dana when we spoke, was that, it wasn't because I had never fought for the UFC, not because I didn't want to. I've wanted to fight for the UFC for a long time. It just never worked out that way. And then contract negotiation after contract negotiation happened, and I was extremely happy and I was extremely taken care of. And Bellator knew I had made myself an indispensable asset to Bellator, and they needed me from a business standpoint. They liked me as a person, and we always got a deal done. This time, that door closing or them not making an offer turned out to be what needed to happen, and it worked out perfectly. And here we are, and I couldn't be happier to be sitting in this spot right here. Excited about 5 weeks from now.
You're one of the few guys who was at the top in the Bjorn Bellator days and top of the Scott Coker Bellator days. Which era did you like better?
They were definitely different. I think back to a bunch of really great memories from the Bjorn era. I mean, that was when I became who I was. The Michael Chandler who came out of nowhere, was 1,000-0 underdog against a guy named Eddie Alvarez, who was top 3 in the world at the time. And I go out there and finish him. And with that, riding the wave of all of that. And then you got a guy like Scott Coker who came in, and I'll never forget, I flew up to San Jose as soon as he took over. We sat down at a coffee shop, a cafe, had breakfast at San Jose one morning when he took over, and we just talked. We talked about philosophy. We talked about what he was going to do with the promotion. We talked about him building the promotion. And Scott Coker, Rich Chew, Mike Kogan, and then Rich Chew had always been Scott Coker's right hand man through the Strikeforce days, one, and then Mike Kogan comes in, who I hadn't worked with a ton, and then Mike Kogan is an extremely impressive individual who came in and was helping out a ton as well. So I would say the newer regime, where Bellator is positioned right now with their staff, with their credentials, with their expertise in the market, they're a good organization. They know what they're doing, and I would say the new regime I liked fighting for better.
After August 7th, did they ever try to re-sign you? Did they make you a serious offer?
I think they did, but they wanted to, but we already had made our decision. We said we will negotiate with you all the way up until that bell rings. And as soon as that bell rings, you can't unring the bell. And then 2 minutes and 9 seconds after that bell rang, Benson Henderson was unconscious, and the rest is history, as they say. And there really wasn't much of a reason. We had that exclusive negotiation period that was probably the longest 2 weeks of my entire life. I just spent 12 weeks away from my family, and I wanted to go on vacation, give my time and my love and my service to my wife and my son, who I hadn't seen in so long. But all I could think about was, when's that phone going to ring? When's the letter going to come through? What's going to happen next? This story is just now heating up and getting started. But it was, we knew we really weren't going to entertain an offer. Of course, money talks and offers talk. I mean, they could throw a crazy number out there and be like, okay, well, now you got my attention. But for the most part, we wanted to hear what the UFC had to offer, had to say, what PFL, what ONE FC, and ultimately here we are.
So we'll get to UFC in a second, but how close were you with the PF? I know you talked to PFL. How close were you with them? With one championship, you could do the Eddie Alvarez fight. How close were you with those guys?
Close. I mean, I wouldn't really say close. I mean, we had offers,
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say we were close. I think, I at the expense of not sounding like I wasn't taking the other offer seriously, I knew where my heart wanted to go. I knew my heart wanted to be sitting right here doing this interview with you with a UFC, hopefully title on the line soon, or a fight in the UFC soon. I knew in my heart that's what I wanted. But what you want and what you get doesn't always happen. It's not always the same thing. PFL, Peter Murray, those guys, extremely impressive. It was awesome to sit across the table with them. Won championship as well. But ultimately, it felt like home. When I flew to Vegas and I sat with Hunter Campbell and spoke to Dana, it felt like I was home. It felt like everything over the last 11 years had been preparing me and fashioning me and galvanizing me, beating me down and building me back up for this moment, this opportunity, and signing this contract.
You could have fooled me with the interview part. I mean, you talked to everyone before you talked to me. I mean, they just had to stick that one in there, but that's okay.
Come on,
That's
man.
okay.
Come on, man.
When you talk about meeting Dana, was that the first time you've ever met him face to face, had a serious conversation with him?
I think back and I can't remember, but I cornered Miles Jury a couple times. I cornered a couple other guys. I think one time I was holding Miles Jury's clothes and I walked up on the weigh-in stage and I shook his hand one time real quick or whatever, or maybe he came in the back, but no, I never really had any conversations with Dana. So this was the first time. And then Hunter Campbell as well. Hunter Campbell is an extremely impressive guy. The sports franchise that these guys are building and running right now is just ridiculous, and it's awesome to be a part of it.
Can you paint that picture for me? What is that first real meeting like? I'm assuming it's in Vegas. You're in the office. It's an impressive new headquarters they have there. It's Dana White. It's Hunter Campbell, the right-hand man. It's your chance to finally make that move to the UFC. You're a free agent. You got multiple suitors. What is that day like for you? What is that meeting like for you? And if you can add, what was it like when you walked out of the room as well, when you went back to your hotel, back on the plane?
So I'll give you some of it. I'm not going to give you all the information.
Oh, come on, Mike. Give us all of it, for God's sake. There's no more interviews to do. This is your last chance.
Someday we'll be able to appreciate this. But so I actually didn't meet with Dana. I met with Hunter Campbell. So we were there. We had this meeting set with Hunter Campbell, and we were going to, and Dana was hopefully going to be there. And it turns out, I think Dana was there, but then he had to go catch a flight real quick. So we sat with Hunter Campbell for about an hour. As I said, I felt like I was home. I felt like, and we'll get to it in a second, but if this had been 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready for that meeting. 4 years ago, this wouldn't have been ready for that meeting. That's why you have to employ extreme patience in order to get what you really want in life. Because if I have that meeting 2 years prior, 4 years prior, maybe it doesn't go as well. Maybe I'm not sitting here and we're talking about it. At that moment, when given that opportunity, searching for that kind of wisdom in a meeting, the biggest meeting of your entire life, it went extremely seamlessly. Hunter was telling me why I needed to come to the UFC. I was telling him how he and Dana have never in their entire existence with the UFC signed a guy who was more equally yoked with the organization, with the brass, with the mission of what the UFC is. And how they've never signed a guy who's going to work as hard inside the cage and outside of the cage as I am. And that's just who I am. That's what I've always been. With me, you get what you get what you see. And I am who I am, and I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And after leaving that meeting, my manager was with me there, Randall Alleman. He was in the meeting with me. He was corresponding with Hunter a couple minutes after, said, hey, Dana wants his number. Dana called me a couple minutes later. We had a really great talk. And that talk ended up having Dana call Hunter and say, hey, let's get something done. And a couple minutes later, he called me back. He said, hey, we're going to get something done. 48 hours later, we had something done.
Wow. That quickly, huh? How long ago was that?
I want to say, I've already been in Florida now training for a week. And so it was two and a half weeks ago, I think.
And when they're sitting with you at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Tony Ferguson versus Dustin Poirier at 254. You're not really in that mix, right? Are they even talking to you about the scenario that you're in now, or are they talking about something else?
No, not really. We, obviously, there's always the hypotheticals. Hey, how's your body? How you feel? Are you ready to fight? I said, yeah, I'm ready to fight. How about, and of course they threw the things out there. Hey, we got, 253 in Abu Dhabi. We got 254 in Abu Dhabi. Will you be ready for these? And I said, hey man, I'm ready tomorrow. Sign me up, put me in, let's go. I'm ready tomorrow. That's the beauty of just coming off of a training camp, albeit my body was a little bit run down, a little bit beat up from the fight and whatnot, but I'm ready to go. Like I can fight with little nagging injuries. So they knew I was down. They knew I was ready to fight whoever. And then, yeah, it wasn't necessarily talked about as in, hey, would you fight Tony Ferguson or fight Dustin Poirier? We're going to try to make it happen. It was, hey, hypothetically, are you down to fight this date or these guys? And I said, I'll fight anybody in the top 5. I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. Let's do this thing. Pull your hat down tight because I only know one speed. And they loved it. And they said, well, okay, we'll start working on some things.
So last week, what is that like for you as they finally announced that you are joining the company and there's all this stuff going on with Ferguson and Poirier, and now you're the backup fighter after all of this? Because I feel like maybe you got some backlash. You're not the one making the decision. You're just the guy who's saying, I'll take the opportunity, as you should, as anyone would. But meanwhile, you have these two very popular and likable fighters who are kind of, banding together to try to, get the deal that they both want. And you're kind of being in there and you're being offered to both guys. And it's a lot of drama. What is that like for you? Because I could imagine that some people are like, oh, you're kind of messing this up and they're using you as leverage and all this stuff. What was that like for you?
Yeah. You underestimate how much you really are in the court of public opinion, sometimes, especially whenever stuff like this happens, whenever when this big news breaks that, hey, we've signed Michael Chandler. Oh, and by the way, UFC 254 backup. Meanwhile, you got these two guys who Dustin Poirier, and I met Dustin. It's very interesting. I've been in the sport now for 11 years. I've never met or been around Dustin Poirier until 6 weeks ago when I saw him at my fight on fight week. And I went straight up to him. I shook his hand, said, hey man, you are a warrior. Your fight with Dan Hooker. I'm a huge fan of you, who you are as a man inside the cage, outside of the cage. You are a warrior. You are the epitome of what us fighters need to be like. He said pretty much the same exact thing about me. He's a fan of my work and followed me and blah, blah, blah. So there's a ton of mutual respect there. Tony Ferguson, don't really know a ton about him. I don't necessarily feel the same way about him as I do Dustin Poirier. But I respect him as a competitor. He's the scariest guy in the division. He is the boogeyman for a reason. These guys have a great reputation inside the sport. So yeah, insert Michael Chandler, insert all the different adjectives and slander some terms that people want to throw at me, like B-League fighter and USADA and this and that, whatever, coupled with you haven't done anything to earn it. And I'm just like, hey, man, I'm just showing up. Preparation meets opportunity. I don't really know how you guys want me to react. All I know is I'm going to do exactly what I set out to do since day one. Train my butt off, try to be a good person, operate with integrity, show up when, where, and against whom they tell me to fight. In this scenario, it's October 24th, possibly Khabib or Gaethje. If not, I look at it like a perfect dry run for me to go fly to Abu Dhabi, go throughout the fight week, make weight, step on the UFC scale for the first time, meet all the brass, all the staff, all the people, do all the media stuff, all the hoopla, and maybe it's a dry run and I don't fight. Maybe it's a perfect dry run for or maybe I actually do fight, but it's a perfect dry run either way.
Are you getting a good deal to just make weight?
We don't know yet.
What do you mean you don't know yet?
Nor will I tell you, Ariel.
Oh, you could say you won't tell me. I hope you know.
I'm sure. Huh?
I hope you know.
It remains to be seen.
Okay.
On this one.
What about the USADA stuff? How much does this annoy you? That was the first. Everyone, oh, he's not going to pass. He's not going to pass. To the best of my knowledge, you've never failed the test.
No. And what people don't realize is, was I under USADA and Bellator? No. But if you are the champion, the main event, or fighting for the title, if you're in a title fight or in the main event, you were getting tested. You do the math. I was in 11 title fights in Bellator, and I was the main event 2 or 3 other times. So I know it was at least 11 times. I know I got tested in Japan under Mohegan Sun. My last test was a WADA full spectrum test, which is the exact whatever they call it, panel, the WADA full panel that USADA uses in a urine test, August 7th. So I just got that done. So, I mean, to me, it's, you can kind of look at it both sides. Of course it's annoying, but I don't, I guess, fault people for having any kind of skepticism. Number one, he doesn't pass the eye test because I guess they think athletes shouldn't look the way that I look if they're clean, allegedly. Secondly, I wasn't governed by USADA. And lastly, people just love to hurl. They will always criticize either A, things they don't understand, or B, things that they're intimidated by. And I think the way that I look or the way that I compete just makes people want to say certain things. But the good thing is, being in the USADA pool, that's a plus. Now, 1 year clean, it's going to be plus. 2 years clean, 3 years, and so on and so on. And they can say, and eventually people will say, man, okay, maybe the guy was clean all along.
My understanding is that they haven't given up, and this is my belief as well, that they were going to do this. They haven't given up trying to find you an opponent on October 24th. What are the chances if Khabib and Gaethje fight on October 24th that you are fighting as well against someone else, perhaps a Ferguson, perhaps a Poirier, perhaps someone else? But my understanding is they haven't given up. I know it was sort of presented as you're the backup fighter, but my understanding is they haven't given up. What are the chances you fight someone if that fight still remains intact?
Yeah, I mean, that's my understanding as well. I'm training for October 24th, and I'm training every day as if my phone may ring and my manager calls me and says, hey, you're fighting this guy on October 24th. And if something does happen to Gaethje or Khabib, you're also in that fight as well. And then they'll pivot and make a different decision. Either way, as I said, I've made my living off of showing up when, where, and against whom my promoter tells me to. And it's no different in this scenario. It's just on a bigger stage, on probably arguably the biggest fight of the year. And you insert my name into the mix as the number one contender. Essentially, that's a pretty good spot to be.
Do you have a preference? If you had your way, and I hope you don't take offense to this, but I hope you don't fight for the belt on October 24th, because I hope something that bad doesn't happen to Khabib and Gaethje. I think you can respect that, right?
100%.
So, but I'd love to see you fight on October 24th, because I think, funny story, Michael, UFC 165, which was actually 7 years ago this week. I was in Toronto to cover UFC 165. It was in 2013. And I remember that week, this was shortly after I think you defended the title once. You beat Eddie Alvarez. You defended the title once, maybe twice. And I said that week that you were the best lightweight in the world. And a high-ranking official with the UFC, who is actually still at the UFC, came up to me. I'll never forget the weigh-ins at UFC 165. He said, "Michael Chandler is the best lightweight in the world. Are you nuts?" I said, "Yes, I think right now he's the best lightweight in the world." And so it's crazy for me that you're here. Like, longtime fans and people who have followed the sport have wanted to see you test yourself against the best in the UFC's lightweight division. So I want to see you fight on October 24th. I'm just wondering, if it can't be for the belt, do you have a preference who that debut is against?
Um, I mean, obviously, as I said, the deal wasn't necessarily predicated on fighting, any certain guys. But I love the Ferguson fight. I love the Poirier fight. I think, as I said, I don't want to come in and act like I need to not, prove myself and whatnot. But right away, why shouldn't I fight a top 5 guy right away? I think Poirier, I think Ferguson. Obviously, you got Connor, who's retired and still in that top 5, and then you got Gaethje, you got Khabib. Those are kind of the guys, right? I think it would be some bad luck that would befall the UFC, obviously, if I have to step in there, because that means you don't get Khabib versus Gaethje. But I think all I know is I'm going to be ready. But I would love to fight October 24th. I would love for it not to be a dry run and not just to make weight for no reason. But it's not making weight for no reason. Let me recant that statement. It's not making weight for no reason. It's having an insurance policy on the biggest card of the year. It's the biggest card of the year. Huge fight. When Khabib steps into the cage, it's always a huge draw. And that's the fight that I would want. Obviously, you don't want the bad luck to happen, but if you're going to fight one of those guys, Justin Gaethje, and I said this, and I'm the kind of guy who I'm not afraid to say respectful things about my foes or my current opponents or my possible future opponents, that I think Justin Gaethje looked like the best lightweight on the entire planet when he fought Tony Ferguson back in May. That version, that calm and composed, that smart and sharp, that altogether relentless Justin Gaethje that we saw step into the cage against Tony Ferguson was the best lightweight in the world on that night. With that being said, I still think Khabib is the pound for pound number 1. He's undefeated. So I would want that opportunity more than I would want the Gaethje opportunity. But at this point, fighting for the UFC on Fight Island, live on pay-per-view, October 24th, I'll take any of them.
If that Gaethje shows up, you think he wins?
I don't, but I think it's going to be a less dominant decision than we're used to seeing by Khabib. I think Gaethje's got the wrestling that will thwart a lot of Khabib's early takedowns. I think you also got to remember too, with the tenacity in which Khabib moves forward and grabs your legs, puts you up against the cage, picks you up and puts you down. That's also going to make Justin Gaethje gun shy. Justin Gaethje wasn't really worried about Tony Ferguson rolling over in the Eminari roll or whatever that thing is, or throwing sand in his eyes. He wasn't worried about that. So he was able to throw strikes freely and without many repercussions. That's not the same with Khabib. You overextend on a hook with Khabib, he's underneath. You overextend with the right hand on Khabib, he's underneath. You're up against the cage, you're on your back, you're in the Dagestani handcuff really quickly, and you're going to be hard pressed to be able to get out of there. So I still think Khabib wins, but I think it's a less dominant than we're used to seeing decision.
And at this point, so you said you're in Florida. How are things at Sanford? Has it quieted down? I mean, the outbreak and all that stuff. Do you feel comfortable training there?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing. Because like I said, last training camp, every day, a new person would walk into the gym or someone would bring their massage therapist for after practice. And you're like, why are they in here? Why are they in here? And, because it doesn't become a friend to friend, teammate to teammate thing. It just becomes business. It becomes, if you are making this decision, you're possibly putting me at risk to not get my paycheck to feed my family, So it was a hard thing to navigate. Now it almost feels like coronavirus to me doesn't even exist. We're still doing the protocols. We still are spraying down the mats before and after every single practice. We're wearing our masks going into practice. We have a world-class facility both next to us, which is Barwis Performance, and Sanford Mixed Martial Arts, where we have cutting-edge healthcare, cutting-edge staff, coaching staff, and fighters. So it's I was just actually talking to our orthopedic surgeon on staff. I was just speaking to him about some stuff. He's coming down here next week too, and we've all got it lined up. Hey, we're going to get in to check out this ankle, this knee, this shoulder, this elbow. So to have that kind of medical knowledge around you at all times is nothing short of amazing. So it's yeah, the shackles are off, man. It's time to train extremely hard and hopefully for October 24th.
And speaking of which, mentally, how hard is it to train for a fight that you don't have just yet, an opponent that doesn't exist? How difficult is that?
It's definitely interesting. You know, it's definitely something that's different. It's definitely because they are two completely different styles. It's not as though I'm fighting you know, Khabib and then another guy who is, you know, well versed on the ground, or Gaethje and then a Poirier who's predominantly a striker. You know, I either have to.
You have to prepare for like 4 guys, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
right?
Yeah, essentially the Poirier Ferguson, as you said, I to my knowledge, I haven't been necessarily told that, hey, we're still actively working on these guys, but you know, I'm sure the fight could happen if one of those guys makes a call. So yeah, you think Poirier Ferguson, you think Khabib and Gaethje. Essentially, I spend 80 to 90% of my training focused on me, my strengths, my attributes. How do I increase my strengths and how do I increase my, you know, make better my weaknesses? And then the last 10%, 20% of my training, we focus on watching tape and watching the little habits and idiosyncrasies of a certain fighter that we may fight or should be fighting. Most of the time, you know by now, but in this case, we don't. But so I'm brushing up on my cage work and my groundwork for the possible Khabib matchup, and I'm brushing up on my striking and continual wrestling, chain wrestling with strikes, mixing it up for a possible Gaethje showdown. But either way, I think the best version of myself, the most confident version of myself, coming off of one of the best performances of my life, and now signing with, you know, the ultimate proving grounds in the UFC, getting the opportunity October 24th. I think the best version of myself is going to come out either way, and seize the day, baby.
Okay, just a couple of quick things before I let you go. Again, thank you for the time. After all those interviews, you must be so tired of talking about this, but I appreciate you carving out some time. What do you think of Patricio Pitbulls' tweet after you signed?
I don't really want to comment, honestly, because it's going to become a headline, and he doesn't deserve a headline. But it's all I know is let's talk about philosophy. Let's talk about a philosophy. Some people have a scarcity mindset and some people have an abundance mindset. A scarcity mindset says, because you, Ariel, are winning, that means you're taking away the winning from the rest of us. That means I can't win as much as I want to win because you're winning. An abundance mindset says there's enough money, there's enough popularity, there's enough things out there that I can go and people can go and accomplish. And whenever I see one man have success, that doesn't mean that my success is being diminished or the possibility of me having success is being diminished. Celebrate people's accomplishments, celebrate people's moving up in life or having success in life, because ultimately things always work out better for you. That's all I'll say about that.
Fair enough. And right now, would it be fair to say, because I know, you know, Bellator, like you said, they treated you well. Is this the best deal of your career?
It's the best. It's the deal that felt the best, and I made the best decision possible for myself and my family. I'm getting compensated a fair wage for my services inside the cage, and that's all I'll say.
How many fights?
1,000.
1,000 fights?
My career.
You said you're not here for a long time. You're here for a good time.
Hey, but I gotta lock myself in at least, you know.
Why does everyone get so weird when I ask about how many fights? I'm not asking for how much.
We all do, but that's
why.
There's a lot of different factors, not the least of which is that Ariel, sometimes, you know, you got to look out for number one, and number one for me is my wife and my son. Make the best decision possible to be the best fighter, the best man, the best employee, and the best everything that you possibly can. So that's where that happens.
All right, fair enough. Okay, last one. A lot of great fighters at Sanford, right?
Yep.
Free agency isn't something that everyone does. It's not something that everyone feels comfortable doing. Given the experience that you just went through, and it sounds like you're very happy with the way it turned out, would you recommend to every fighter out there, and I'm not talking about, you know, the guy in LFA trying to make it to the UFC, obviously that's different, but in your spot, right, with your accomplishments, with your tenure, to test free agency, to fight out their deals and see what's out there. And maybe it's going back to the place. It doesn't mean that it's personal. It doesn't mean that you're unhappy, but just to see what's out there, given this landscape. Would you recommend that?
I would. but it has to be the perfect storm of what have you done for your promotion lately? What have you done for the MMA world lately? Where is your skill set? Is your trajectory forward, or is it stagnant, or is it going backwards? For me, I knew I was moving forward. I knew I was only getting better. I knew my name and platform was only growing. So if you're in that position, I don't see why you shouldn't. Because is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. Is it scary? Absolutely. But nothing great in life was ever accomplished by trying to shy away from fearful or scary scenarios. Life begins and ends at the end of your comfort zone, getting outside of your comfort zone. And trust me, I've been outside of my comfort zone a lot over the last 11 years, but this was definitely outside of my comfort zone, and I'm reaping the benefits and the rewards of it now. And the best is yet to come. So stay tuned.
Amen. Well done. Congratulations on the big deal. Don't forget about those people who said that you were the best lightweight in the world many moons ago.
7 years ago. I know, right?
I mean, come on. And you've been doing it longer than that. When was that fight against Eddie? 2011 off the top of my head?
2011, 9 years ago.
Unbelievable. Here you are, 34 years young, ready to go, potentially fighting for the belt. If not, a big fight on a big show. A lot of good things coming your way, and you deserve it, Mike. So congratulations on the deal. Congratulations on everything happening, and good luck in training.
Thank you. I appreciate it.